Welcome to Advanced Prompt Usage, referencing prompts in reports. In this video, we'll learn how to reference a single value prompt within a report header or footer, and we'll do the same with range value prompts. In this example, we'll be working with a sample student dataset, and we can see in our prompt manager window that we already have two prompts created, a date range prompt and a state prompt. And if we look at our query builder with right-click modify, we can see that a number of fields have already been selected in our select data tab, and in our filter data tab we have both prompts being used by this query. Remember that prompts aren't automatically used when they're created. They have to be manually connected to a query builder or other enterprise guide step. The two filters we have, the first one, date range prompt, allows the user to limit the results to students born within a specific date range, and the second one, state prompt, allows the user to limit the results to a specific state. Now, normally when we run the query, we'll get a SAS data table as the output, and we can see that in options for this query. The results format is set to data table, but if we click override the global settings, we can change that to report just for this example. We'll hit OK here, and then we'll hit run to run the query. By running the report, we're prompted to select the date range and the state. So we'll choose a custom date range from January 1st, 1991. I think it'll be quicker to type this in. January 1, 1991 to December 31st, 1991. And we'll select the state of Pennsylvania. And we'll hit run. And we can see that instead of a normal data table, we're going directly to the report format. And when we click on that, we get our result. Now we're going to add a header and footer to this report. The header will have the report title, and we'll use the variable to include the name of the state that the user selected, and the footer will then include the date range that the user selected. To add the header and footer, we're going to navigate back to the query builder, right-click modify, and we're going to go to options and options for this query, and then on the left hand menu we're going to go down to titles, and we're going to override the default, and we're going to enter our own header, and we're going to type in student list 4, and then we're going to enter the variable name that contains the state the user selected, and that is ampersand state prompt. Unfortunately, in this window view, you don't have the option to look through a list of all your prompt names the way you can when doing a query builder or a filter. So you do have to remember the name of your variable, and there are outside of this window, there are a few other ways to get a list of existing variables, and I'll show you that. Next, we're going to replace the footer with the text, "This report is limited to students with birth dates between," and now we need the name of our prompts. So to find that, we're going to exit out of this window and save and close the query builder. And we're going to go over to the right hand side where we have our prompt manager window, and we can take our date range prompt and right click show macro variables, and you see that the date range prompt is listed with all of its various extensions. Some of these we went over in the previous advanced prompt usage video, and so we'll need the date range prompt min and max. The other way to find prompt names is going to Tools and the SAS macro variable viewer, and that'll open a window that looks like this. And the downside to using this is not only does it list a lot of sort of global system variables that you don't need, but it also will only show variables that have a value assigned. So if you haven't used a variable yet, it may not show up, and likewise the extensions won't always show up. So it can be useful in some cases, but it's not going to be as useful in this example. To complete the footer, we'll navigate back to the query builder, right-click Modify, Options for this query, and Prompts, or titles as it were, and back to the footnote we were typing, and back in the Prompt Manager Show Macros Variables window, if we had double-clicked on one of them, it would have copied them, but then we'd have had to go back and forth to get the rest of them. So in this case, I'm just going to use my memory to type in date, range, prompt, underscore min, and in this case I'm going to use underscore min underscore label, which will give us the long form version of that date, and then I'll say through ampersand date range prompt underscore max underscore label, and hit OK and run. We'll keep all the same selections, and we'll say run, and then when we open the report, we'll see student list for Pennsylvania, and we'll see the new footer. This report is limited to students with birth dates between January 1st, 1991 through December 31st, 1991. If we run the query builder step again and replace the results, we can change the selection to 1993 and the state to Florida, and when we run that and we open our new results, we'll see that the header now says student list for Florida and the footer now references 1993. The last thing I'll mention about using macro variables like this is if you have a multi-select prompt for your users, so maybe you have 5 departments for them to choose from, and they select 3. There's not a very easy way to include all 3 choices in the header, because what will actually happen behind the scenes is when you go into that view macro variable window, you'll see that there's actually a prompt 1 variable created, prompt 2, prompt 3, and each of those holds one selection, Department A, Department B, Department C, and since you don't know exactly how many selections the user is going to make, you don't know how many variables to place in your header. There are ways, advanced ways, to use SAS code to iterate through however many selections they made, find out the number, and then place them all there. But that is a little bit outside the scope of this video. So with that, we will conclude referencing prompts in reports.